I hope you're all doing fun. Hi guys, very welcome once again. So, as you might have noticed, I am still on my very, very poor Spanish internet. So, if anything happens to this, stay tuned, stay here, alright? Because I will be fixing with my internet and trying to solve it and find a different channel or whatever so that I can continue. So, don't leave in case the live stream would stop working, alright? I hope you're all doing absolutely fantastic out there. As you know by now, I love doing these live streams with you. I'm hoping to be able to do much more of them coming up. But for now, I want to just establish some ground rules, okay? Because I am getting loads and loads of people watching and asking questions all the time, and I have to prioritize which questions I am going to answer. So what I've said is that I am going to be using the Mentour Aviation app and the Superchat primarily. So if you have questions, get the Mentour Aviation app. It's completely free. The chat is completely free. Everything on there. But I want to build the community there. I want to have as many people as possible open inside the app. So that's why I'm kind of prioritizing using the app. And I'm also, obviously, if you go in like Joan Schumacher just did and into the super chat and ask me questions there, they will take priority over everything else. So I will answer all of those questions first. So first of all, guys, how are you doing? I hope you're all doing fantastic out there, as always. I know I keep saying that, and I really mean it, you know. So we have some questions here coming up. I'll have a look inside of the app to start up with. Good. So I have a question here actually, which is a good one from Axel inside of the Mentour Aviation app. He's asking, if you want to take a test lesson, how much does the instructor expect you to know, and how can you prepare? Now, if you're going to go and take a test lesson, you don't need to know anything. Basically, you don't even know that you don't even have to know that the aircraft has wings, okay? The whole idea with the test lesson is so that you can go out and you can talk to a flight instructor and you can get a feeling for what it's like, what the instructor is like, what the aircraft is like. He's going to show you everything you want to know. So there's no need for any preparation before you go and do a test lesson. Now, before you go and actually start your training is a different thing. The better prepared you are, the better it is. But for the test lesson in itself, no worries. Just go there, enjoy, and get as much out of it as you possibly can. That's my suggestion to you, Axel. Edward Cameron has gone into the super chat. Very good evening to you, Edward. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. It's fantastic. Oh, and I see now there's more and more people that's turning up. If something would happen to my internet, guys, just keep tuned, okay? I will be trying to fix with my internet, and if something drops off or whatever, I'll be back within a few minutes. And if not, I'm going to tell you here in the chat to go over to Facebook, who seems to have a more stable connection. But for now, I'm going to keep using YouTube because I like YouTube. Pancake Killer, you're starting training tomorrow. Fantastic. Good for you, man. Remember to really enjoy it, all right? I know that you're going to feel under a lot of stress and you're going to feel like you want to achieve and stuff like that. But remember that in all of that stress, you also have to kind of enjoy the moments. This is, I always get questions about people who's going to do their first solo flight. I ask, like, how can I prepare? What should I think about? And what I always tell people is, like, enjoy it. I remember that feeling on my first solo so vividly. Taking off, being all prepared, being all a little bit nervous, taking off, and then all of a sudden looking over and realize that you're sitting by yourself in an aircraft and they allow you to do that and you can fly it by yourself. It's an absolutely fantastic feeling, guys. And that goes through your whole training. Remember to enjoy it while you're doing it because it's really important. Right, guys, so as I said, if you want to ask your questions, do go into the Mentour Aviation app or through the super chat. Leonie Watson, how would a terror attempt or terror attack affect an airline? Those are all horrible things, and we've all seen what happened after September 11th, which basically almost flatlined the industry for several months and then for several years. So terror attacks tends to be very, very bad, because the whole idea with terror is to make people afraid. That's the whole meaning of the word. So terror attacks are very, very bad when it comes to the airline industry, because people are generally a little bit afraid already to start with, a little bit skeptical about flying, especially if you don't know anything about it, which is why the terror attempts towards airlines and towards involving airlines tends to be very, very effective, and that's why they're doing it, because it gets a lot of press, scares a lot of people. So a specific airline probably will not be specifically hurt because it's an act of terrorism. It's something that's not because an airline has done something wrong. It's because a criminal organization has done something horrible. So the airline in itself might not get that hard hit, but the industry as a whole always gets very badly hit by terrorist attacks. Alex Prestige has gone in through the super chats. Thank you very much, Alex. Biggest piece of advice to someone wanting to become a pilot but aren't better off as other? I'm guessing you're thinking financially. This is a very tricky part, okay? And so this is a question that I get very often, and it's very hard to answer because at the moment it is very expensive to become a pilot. Even the cheapest variant of the integrated and modular courses will still cost more than 40,000 euro. I've heard around 39,000 euro up to 40,000 euro to get all of your licenses, and then it goes much, much higher than that. So yeah, it will cost you a lot of money. But what I always say is that if you can't do it the integrated way, you can't buy one of those programs, well then you're going to have to do it the modular way. And almost anyone can do that by getting yourself a job, working hard, saving, using your savings to take flight lessons as you go, and then kind of grind away at it. And year after year after year, you amass more and more flight time, more and more lessons. You get closer and closer to your goal. So it's going to take you longer to do it that way. But at the moment, it's one of the few ways that you can self-sponsor and still do it without being wealthy or having a lot of money. Of course, there are other variants as well. If you are lucky enough to live in a country like Sweden, for example, that has government-sponsored programs, you can try to go that way. It's generally quite a lot of competition to get into one of those, but it doesn't mean that it's impossible. Just look at me. I was just an average student, and the only reason I managed to get into one of those schools was because of hard work, dedication, and a love for what I wanted to do. All right, so it is perfectly possible if those exist, and they do in a few countries. I think France has it, Sweden has it, and Norway does it as well. I think Finland has it. I'm not 100% sure though. And then the third option is try to get an airline to sponsor you. There are a few airlines out there who do cadet programs, okay, who take you in and then they train you through, and then you bond you, which means that they will deduct a part of your salary for several years in order to kind of reclaim the training cost for it. They do exist in many, many countries, so check that out. Normally it tends to be the flag carriers who does this, and once again, hard to get in, but not impossible. Michael Murray, thanks a lot for supporting the channel. Good to have you here. Okay, so more questions. I'm getting loads of questions in the Mentour Aviation app now. I'm going to go back a little bit to make sure that I won't be able to answer all of them, but I will do my best. Sagat Hackett. Hi, Mentor. My name is Sahil. One of your Instagram followers. My question is, how much trim tab are we using during landing? Yeah, so generally speaking, it's very hard to say because it's depending a little bit on your weight and stuff. It's around 6 units. In percentage wise, I'm not sure, to be perfectly honest, because we don't really, we set a trim setting for takeoff, because a takeoff then it needs to be set to a specific trim. When we come in for landing, you tend to have the aircraft trimmed out for the speed that you're flying. So we don't really look at percentages or at the stab trim setting, to be perfectly honest, when we're flying. The only thing that we care about is not having to force the controls. So I'm going to be perfectly honest and say that I don't know exactly what the percentage is for the stab trim setting for approach. Okay, sorry about not being more specific than that. Sinedin, if you were to start your airline training now, would you be confident with the economic situation? Yes, today, right now, the airline business is healthier than it's ever been, I would say. That has to do with many factors. It has to do with the fact that there hasn't been any major wars for a long time. It has to do with a very low oil price. And generally, things are starting to take off again after the financial crisis of 2008. So right now, the airlines are doing quite well. So you can see that by a lot of people being hired, and I see that a lot of experienced people, the ones that I work with, are starting to move in between the airlines, because the airlines are now competing for pilots, and that means that they will be taking pilots from the smaller airlines that will then be recruiting cadets and people with low hours. So right now it looks very good. That can, however, change very quickly. So I'm just going to put a caveat in for that it's just because it looks very good now, you never know what's going to happen in a few years or so. But at the moment, it looks very good. PM Weisner, hi Mentor, do you have any tips for ongoing pilots? I'm doing my Abitur, similar to A levels. Let's see. Yeah, like I always say, for people that haven't started the training yet, you are going to have to, if you're still in school, you have to concentrate on getting good grades. And not only good grades, but actually understanding what it is that you're reading, especially when it comes to the natural sciences like physics and mathematics. You have to try to get a good understanding of that, because that will help you when it comes to your ATPL theory later on. So study hard in school, make sure you get good grades, because they might help you to get into, for example, a government-sponsored program. In my case, I needed perfect score, perfect grades in order to be sure to be taken in for the initial exams for the program that I was accepted into. So study hard on that. And also, I would suggest that if you really want to start studying aviation, but you haven't started going into flight training yet, you can always get the private pilot license theory package and start reading that, because that's going to give you a good foundation. And a foundation is very good to have, and it's going to put you a little bit ahead for when your training starts. Okay, so more questions from, let's see, I can take something here from the actual, from the chat as well. Big Grady, do you get to choose the airplane that you fly? No, this is a common misconception, and the question that I get very often. You very rarely get to choose the aircraft you're going to fly, okay? Because once you've done your training, what's going to be really important for you is to just get a job. So you will be applying for any airline that has any kind of aircraft that exists, basically. If you end up flying a Saab 2000 or a Boeing 737 or an MD-80 or a Fokker 100 or a Fokker 27, it's not going to matter to you too much. What's going to matter is that you can fly and that you get paid for it, okay? So once you get into an airline, then you might be able to bid for different fleets. But in most cases, you're just going to be hired, and when they hire you, they're going to say that, listen, we are going to need you in this aircraft type. And then you are going to fly that aircraft type. You might, during your career, be able to change that aircraft type into something else. But generally speaking, once you start working, the only thing that really matters to you is your life quality. So if a different aircraft type flies on different routes that you might like better, or has a bit different roster that you might like better, well, then you will probably bid for that type of aircraft. But no, generally speaking, you will not be able to kind of choose an airline just because it has a specific type. You will not have that luxury. Jake Sharp, thank you very much once again on the super chat. Hi Mentor, what is the procedure if a pilot becomes very sick while during flight? Yeah, so I have done a video on this actually, fairly recently as well. Just look for pilot incapacitation and the procedure that we do. This is also something that I'm considering to do an instructional video on in the Mentour Aviation app later on, just to show you what the procedure is and how you actually fly and land a 737 if there's only one pilot. Obviously, if you get really sick, as in you get a heart attack or you're just vomiting and you cannot stop, you're going to have to exit the cockpit. If you have a heart attack or something that makes you unconscious, the flight attendants are going to bring you out and they're going to try to give you CPR and give you oxygen, things like that. And the remaining pilot is going to make sure that the aircraft stays safe and gets safely down on the ground. Make sure that all the passengers are safe, obviously, but that also that you get under medical attention. I hope that answers your question. How we actually do that, if you go in and look, just search for pilot incapacitation on my channel, you will get a full briefing video on that. Right, more questions from the chat inside of the Mentour Aviation app. If you don't have it already, I definitely recommend you to get it. I've just added a TCAS course for only 99 cents as well, and it includes some documentaries and stuff that I really recommend you to get. So, Smithasher02, how do you get out of turbulence? Yeah, turbulence is something that we encounter pretty much every day. If it's just light turbulence, we won't bother too much about it. If it becomes moderate, then we start asking other aircrafts around us if it's better at different levels. So we ask ATC if they've had any ride reports, which is what it's called, any turbulence reports at, for example, a flight level 2,000 feet below us or 2,000 feet above us. And then if it turns out that it's better there, we will ask for a climb or descend in order to get out of the turbulence. If the turbulence is because we have entered an area of CBs, as in thunderstorms, we might even consider a 180 turn. If you enter CB, then a 180 turn to get back out again might be the safest course of action, and that's actually what we have in our manuals. So that's pretty much what we do. We try to just change level because turbulence can be very, very localized. It might just be a layer of 1,000 feet or so. It's really turbulent. 1,000 feet above that, it might be completely calm. So it's normally very, very, very localized. Sagard, I will be meeting you this July. Maybe. I guess if you're in the Barcelona area, so I might be actually, guys, if you're really interested in doing a meetup, let's say in Barcelona or in London or something like that, let me know, and I'll try to figure something out. Maybe go to a pub or whatever and see if there's enough people of you who want to meet up and do kind of a meet and greet. Then that would be fun to do. Kasra Hanam. Hi Mentor, do you know the best way to get my bachelor and my pilot certificates at the same time? That's going to be tough, man. To do a degree at the same time as you do your license is going to be a lot of work, okay? And I probably wouldn't recommend it, to be honest, unless they are combined, so that you go to a school that actually gives you both the bachelor degree and the certificates together in the same course, because otherwise you are going to need pretty much all of your energy and your focus to do your ATPL theory correctly. And then, you're going to have to study a lot of subjects in a very short amount of time. So I wouldn't recommend you to try to combine something or two hard things like that. Shalamuda, Mentor, do the flight attendants stay in the flight deck when one of the pilots goes out to use the lavatory? These kind of questions, they are company specific, okay? So the different procedures that different companies have when it comes to leaving the flight deck and stuff, those are the kind of things that I'm not allowed to talk about. Okay, these are considered safety and security procedures, and they are, like I said, different from different airlines. And what I do in my airline and what you might do in your airline, you're not going to be able to go out and tell that to people, because people which have bad intentions might use that kind of information in a bad way. And this is also, I want to take this time to point something out, because I keep getting comments saying that people could use your application, or terrorists could use your application to learn how to fly and stuff like that. But this is not what I do. Now, what I do in these podcasts and the videos that I do, and also the instructional videos in the Mentour Aviation app, is I do show you how to, for example, start up a 737, how to set it up for flight, and how to do the security stuff. But there's nothing in what I'm saying that you cannot just get by downloading a Boeing generic manual from the internet, or looking at numerous other videos, or just go to flight school. So this is the difference, all right, guys? I will tell you all of the stuff which are readily available and that I have the possibility to explain to you guys, okay? I will gladly do that. But I will never go into discussing things like security or safety procedures that might actually be used in a dangerous way. So those are the differences, and I'm actually glad that this question came up, so I had a chance to explain it to. I hope you guys understand that. Alex Singh, hi Mentor. When taxiing around the airport, would you and the first officer be able to identify every narrow body or wide body aircraft? Like all the Airbuses and Boeings. No, not all of them, but the most common types we would probably know. it depends a little bit on how interested you are in flight spotting, okay? And if you were a flight spotter before you became a pilot or whatever, but I wouldn't, okay? I will be able to identify the major ones, the bigger ones, especially the ones that comes with higher wake turbulence category, for example, because that might have safety implications. But not, I wouldn't be able to say that that's a Dornier 228 or that's that's another type of Dornier or something like that. The Airbus family and the Boeing family, most of them, yes. Matthew, let's see, I'm just going to make sure so I'm not missing any of the questions in the super chat, because the super chats are the ones that I prioritize when it comes first. So guys, if you really have an important question that you want to ask me, then use the super chat, because that's where I'm looking the most. More questions. Let's see. It's lovely to see that you're so active in the Mentour Aviation chat, guys. Try to use that. If you're bored and you're sitting at home and you don't have anything else to do, then go into the chat. There's almost always someone asking a question about ATPL theory or something like that, and you might be able to help them. So that's why I'm trying to get so many users into the Mentour Aviation app, because the more users we are, the more active the chat is going to be, the more questions are going to be answered, and the more helpful it's going to be for you guys, which is what I'm looking for. Stor Kirill, hi sir, I'm a Russian citizen and I want to become a pilot, but it's impossible to training in Russia for me. What country do you recommend for training, and what is my chance to get a job after training except in Russia? Right, this is also a fairly common question I get, guys, and that is if you can work in a different country if you are from a specific other country, like Russia into Europe or America into the EU, things like that. The answer to that is that, first of all, you're going to have to make sure that you can get a working visa and a right to live and stay in the country that you're going to apply to. Okay, so if you want to work in Europe, for example, you need to have the right to live and work inside of European Union, and the only way to know if you can do that or not is to go to your consulate and ask there if you can get a working visa and how that is done. If you can normally get a studying visa fairly easy. It's the work visa that might be tougher. Work visa for a Russian, it doesn't really matter. I think that you can probably go to the United States. You can probably also go to Europe, to any of the schools in Europe, to get the study visa there and do the training there. I would suggest maybe, well, obviously I did my training in Sweden. I know the Scandinavian Aviation Academy, for example, that I did my training with was very good. And they're getting some good reviews now as well. I think they were actually just today selected for the Boeing pilot program, which is only one of 3 schools in the world who's done that. So congratulations to Scandinavian Aviation Academy. With that, and this is also something I wanted to cover, guys, is that I will very rarely recommend flight schools. And the reason for that is because I don't have any knowledge of them. Okay, so I'm not going to tell you guys to go to a specific flight school unless I have been there, interviewed the people, seen the facilities, and I can actually say that, listen, this is a good training organization. So that's why when you guys ask me for which flight school to choose, I will only be able to tell you the ones that I've actually talked to and been to, like Virtual Aviation, for example, in Cambridge for MCC courses. As far as I can see, a very good quality product. Scandinavian Aviation Academy, I did my training there myself, so I can talk about that. And a few others as well. But apart from that, I can't say much. So back to your questions about if you're a Russian. I know that in Poland, for example, there are a few good flight schools at a very good price, which is fairly close to you geographically as well, so I would probably look into that. Guys, I'm sorry I can't answer all of the questions that are coming into the chat. I'm just taking them by random here. If you have a question that you've asked a lot, then and I don't answer it in the live stream, feel free to go into Facebook and send it to me there, and I'll try to answer it on Facebook. And share the page, by the way. I want to build that community as well, because I'm using all of these communities to kind of get people in for these live streams, for example. Right, so we're getting some questions on the super chat here as well. Tim Porter, did you know you wanted to be a training captain before you finished your own flight training, or did you decide later in your career? That's a great question. Actually, I had never been instructing before I joined my current airline. So I had only done my training myself, and then I did my military service. I was an airport firefighter for a while, and then I went in and I finished my training. got my job. I worked as a first officer for about 2.5 years, and then what happened was that I wasn't very happy in my situation. Okay, my life situation. I wanted a change, so I wanted to change either the base I was based in, or the airline, or the job. Okay, and what happened was that my airline started to look for instructors, and I thought that that might be a good thing to do. But I had never done any instructing before, so I applied for the instructor job and went through the interviewing process and everything, and managed to get the job. And that was the single best thing that I have done. All right, I can honestly say that in my career, the single best decision that I did was to go to become a training first officer, a synthetic flight instructor, SFI. Right, that was one of the best and the smartest thing I've done, because the increasing knowledge that you need in order to be an instructor is so much bigger than you can ever understand without being it. Okay, I thought that I had a really good understanding of technical stuff and procedures and things before I joined the SFI program. But what it turned out to be when I got there was that I knew nothing. Okay, because you need to know not only what the procedure is, you need to take gear down here, you need to do this and this and this here. That is easy. What is hard is to understand why that has to be done. And you have to know why it has to be done in a specific way in order to instruct. Because for people to understand and to remember something, they need to understand what they're doing and why. Okay? And that level of understanding, that level of knowledge, I would have never attained unless I started the instructor job. It was hard work, really hard work. Okay, especially in the beginning, even when you have some experience, it's really, really tough work to be an instructor. But I have loved every single day of it. Okay, there are hard works. You know, there are days where you wish that you weren't training because of the workload that comes with it. But the job in itself and the satisfaction good instruction gives you, when you see that. You can see it in the eyes of people when they understand something. You can see kind of the light being flicked on inside of their eyes when they're like, that's why. Or I've been sitting in the wrong position. That's why my landings are hard. Or I'm looking at the wrong place. I'm not focusing on the right thing. And you understand when you manage to give someone that and they fix it and you see how it gets better, that is priceless. And that is why I became an instructor. And that is why I've continued to be an instructor. So I hope that answers your question. Edward Cameron on the Superchat. What if all of your hydraulics fail? This is another video that another instructional thing that I'm planning to do for my Mentour Aviation app. Okay, because this is really interesting. Now, there are aircrafts out there that if you get a complete hydraulic failure, you are basically gone. All right, which is why you almost always have not only 2 redundant systems, maybe 3 redundant systems. Make sure that doesn't happen. All right. The 737 is starting to be unique. It's one of the few aircraft left in the world who actually have physical lines connected from the flight controls to the rudder surfaces, to all of the flight control surfaces. Which means that if hydraulics in the 737 is very, very heavy. It's called manual reversion. And you know, when the hydraulics are gone, you actually feel you have to really kind of pull and twist in order to get the aircraft where you want. It's not very comfortable, very, very hard to do it accurately, but it is flyable. So even with the complete loss of hydraulics, you can still land it. You can drop the gear because the gear drops using gravity, and you can fly it using the line. So in the 737 you can still do that. Many other aircraft you can't. Electro Guy, what is the maximum hours you can stay awake? I don't know. Maybe I haven't actually tried. In way over 24 anyway. But I would say around 30 hours is probably for me. I like my sleep, and that would be under really horrible conditions. Obviously, that cannot be combined with flying aircraft. All right, and that would be if you did it for I don't know, some kind of test or whatever. But when it comes to flying, you have to be well rested. You cannot be fatigued. It is extremely dangerous. Right, I'll take a few questions from the normal chat as well, because I realized that I have been neglecting you a little bit. But this is what I was talking about. There's so many questions being asked on all of both the app chat and in the super chat and on the normal chat that I can't keep up with everything, and that's why I'm trying to get you guys into the Mentour Aviation app. So I'm hoping that you go by that. Jordan the Wolf, Mentor, what inspired you to become a pilot? My dad, Papa. I went to fly with him when he was a private pilot because he had a huge area of northern Sweden that he needed to cover in his job. So he thought it would be a good idea to get a private pilot license and fly to some of these places, which it did. And I got to fly with him, and that kind of sparked my interest. And after that, it was just, once the fire is lit, you can't do anything about it. You just have to follow it. So that was what started it all off. More questions from the app here. Hi, Mentor, from Sam C. Hill. I have 2 questions. That's a bit of cheating to put 2 questions into here. 1, does the weather radar on VXT, do you have the gain in the middle and the tilt on 0? Or 2, have you got EGSS Stansted on your roster so far? All right, 2 questions. So the weather radar we have 2 types of weather radar in the 737. The old type, which is the one where you have to manually set the pitch of the weather radar, where you tend to start off with 5+, as in tilted up to 5 degrees, and then you gradually put it down so that when you're in cruise, it's set to 0 more or less. So above about 25,000 feet, you can put it down 1 degree for each 5,000 feet you're climbing, more or less. The gain is set to auto. We never touch the gain at all when it comes to that weather radar. The new weather radar, you basically don't even have to touch. It's just set to auto, and it continuously scans the whole area, and it shows you any weather that is within you and a certain amount of altitude above and below. Okay, so the new weather radar is much more sophisticated, and we don't have to touch the tilt at all. When it comes to my roster, and this is also a question that I'm happy that I got from you guys. My roster, I cannot discuss. All right, this is another one of those safety things. I cannot give out where I'm going to be flying at any given time. And the reason for that, I know what you guys want to know it, and it is fun. I would love to be able to say it, but once again, if there are people out there with bad intentions, it's not good if they know what one specific pilot is going to fly on a specific day. Right? So it's one of those things. We don't share our rosters. Okay. Tragic, but it's just one of those things. I would love to be able to tell you guys when I'm coming and what I'm going to do and stuff, especially for those of you guys who do flight spotting. But at the moment, unless I know you personally, I can't give out that information. Right, this is a good question actually from Jordan the Wolf. What inspired you to make this YouTube channel and to start educating people? Right, I'm going to be completely honest with you guys and say that the first reason that I did this and I started this YouTube channel was because I knew very little of social media. Okay, I knew that social media was something that is really, really important, but I, just like most other people, just had a Facebook account, looked at YouTube the occasional time, and that was it. All right, so I had a feeling that if you want to make an impact in this world and you want to touch a lot of people and have some kind of say, well, then you need to be able to master social media. So that's why I started my YouTube channel. The first video is by far the most watched video on my channel, which is the life quality of an airline pilot, pros and cons. All right, it was done just on my old iMac. Okay, that's why the video quality is so poor, and the audio quality is also so poor. And I basically just started talking, just like I'm doing now. I started talking about what my thoughts were, what I thought was the good things and the bad things and everything like that. And that got a lot of attention because it was fairly early on. And then from there, I have started to realize that this is really, really interesting. And I want to try to do something with the community. I want to try to build a support community, all right? And this is when once I had started, I realized that there was so little honest information out there. People who wanted to give their opinion in a constructive and positive way. There's loads and loads of anger, loads and loads of disappointment and negativity out on the internet. Because generally, before me and Captain Joe and the other YouTubers that make videos about aviation before us, basically the only people who went out on internet to say anything about aviation were people who were disappointed, who hated their lives, hated their airline, hated their jobs. Probably not because they had a bad job or because they had a bad airline or whatever. It's because it was a combination of things. And when you're unhappy about your situation and your life, you are going to project that as something, and most people project it at their job and their employer. So if you go into people and you ask a question, what do you think about this airline? Chances are that you are going to get, this airline is shit, they're going to try to rob you, we're always tired, we're always unhappy, we're always bad, right? That is what I'm talking about. There's only people out there willing to vent their own frustration. So I wanted to create something different than that. I wanted to create something where you guys who are either really young and want to get into this business, or you are about to enter the business as a training cadet, or you're actually, maybe you're even a pilot who wants just to hear a different story than what you hear in the flight deck from, old and angry people. I wanted to give you my point of view because I'm really happy. All right, I'm very happy. That might change, but at the moment I'm extremely satisfied with my job, and I'm doing a lot of training, so I know that what a lot of you are going to get into, what you can expect. So I felt that I had the obligation to explain that, to give you a window into my world, into what I say. And I've always been very, very honest with this. What I say is my opinion, okay? I do not represent any airline or any business except my own. So what you hear from me is that you're hearing my view. And that might be wrong, it might be something that you don't agree with, but at least you have something. That's what I wanted to do. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, I know it was a very long question, but there you go. Sorry, very, very long answer. I'm mixing things up. Right, guys, more questions in the super chat. Let's see. So nothing in the super chat so far. If you guys have more questions, we've been doing this for 37 minutes now. Normally I'm doing this for about 45 minutes or so. So if you have any questions, then pop them into the super chat or in the Mentour Aviation app, because let's see, there's loads of questions here that I have missed. Okay, most of fame. Do you think that 2025 aviation will be different? I mean, planes that can fly without pilot. And this is also a very common question that I get. No, 2025 it will look very much like it does now. Okay, the aircrafts are going to continuously evolve, going to get better. Systems will get better, but it's unlikely that you will see them shifting away from pilots anytime soon. That might happen, it probably will happen, but it's going to take much longer than 7 years to get there. Cool. So people are talking about collaborations here. I'm constantly looking for collaborations with basically anyone. But most I'm looking into doing some collaborations with other YouTubers that are doing aviation, because I think it's good fun for you, and I think personally it's quite good fun to do something like that as well. So I'm looking into that. Don't worry. Okay, Sagar Hackett. Hello, mentor. Which course is great, ATPL on school or ATPL online? I would probably prefer to go to school and to have classroom lessons, to have a instructor that can explain things to me. So that's my personal opinion anyway. That going to school and get classroom it's much better. But that might be different. You might like it in a different way. More questions. I'm getting a few here in the normal chat as well. What is your real name? My real name is Petter. Okay, it's not Peter, it's Petter. So Peter with an extra T, just to make it a little bit more interesting. How many hours did you have when you did your first solo flight? That's a good question. I think, can't remember, 25, maybe something like that. I can't remember exactly. What airline do you fly for? So, all right, this is another thing that I'm constantly getting a lot of questions about. It's not a secret which airline I work for. Any one of you can find it out if you just dig down a little bit. But I am not going to talk about it. Right? I'm not going to mention them here, and I'm never going to write something about them unless they tell me that they are okay with me doing that. Okay, and the reason for that is simple. I've been speaking to my employer. They are perfectly okay letting me do this as long as I'm not doing anything stupid or saying something stupid, or as long as I don't try to pretend that I am a spokesperson for this airline, because I'm not. All right, I am not being paid to talk on behalf of the airline. I'm only talking on behalf of myself, and as long as that's the case, I cannot talk about them. Okay, and I cannot include their brand in my videos or show stuff that includes it. And this is why it becomes very, very hard to show in-flight videos, for example, because it's always going to include one of my colleagues or the airline call sign or whatever, and all of that, plus the fact that I don't really approve of doing filming during critical phases of flight. I know that I've done a few videos now in the cockpit, and I know that you guys like that, and I understand that, but as you might have noticed, the cockpit is dark, it's closed down, it's completely black. That's because it's after duty. It's just in between crews, and I've had the opportunity to show you some easy stuff like the window, for example. I might be doing more of that unless they tell me to stop doing that, but doing anything more than that would require their specific approval, which is something that I just don't have. Right, so we are starting to get towards the end of this, guys. If you have more questions, then please put them into the super chat now before I stop it. PM Weisner, do you want to fly Airbus someday? I would love to try to fly Airbus. Right, I think Airbus looks like a very interesting aircraft. I don't agree with some of the philosophy. First, basically, I love Boeing because you can see what the Boeing is doing. Even when the autopilot is engaged, you can see that the thrust lever is moving. You can see that the controls are moving, just like there's an invisible hand there flying it. Okay, and the reason I like that is because that gives visual feedback to us pilots, and we are essentially monkeys. Okay, everyone else are. We rely on visual, oral impressions. So if we see something or hear something or smell something, we know how to interpret that, and becomes very obvious to me. If I see that my stick is starting to push forward, well then I will automatically have a look at my trim, because there might be something running away, like the trim there might be something wrong with it. If I see the thrust going up, I know that the speed must be low. That, the things like that comes automatically without having to think about it. If nothing moves, it takes me much, much longer to understand what is going on if something goes wrong. Okay, so this is something I like with Boeing, and I don't really understand in Airbus, but I'm not type rated on Airbus, so I might be completely wrong in this, but I like the visual feedback that you get from Boeing aircraft, which you don't get in an Airbus. But I would still love to try it because I think it looks like a fantastic piece of technology. Chief Excellence, can I become a pilot if I suffer from giant farts? You would be amazed of how many pilots suffer from that. Now the problem is, and this is actually something that happens quite a lot. If you look at it, if you have, let's say that you take a water bottle, something like that. You take a water bottle, you open it before you enter the aircraft. Then you close it up, and then you leave it until it's at top of climb. And you look at how it looks. It's going to have inflated quite a bit. And the reason for that is because the air pressure is lower at higher altitude, which means that whatever gas you have expands. Now, the exact same thing happens inside of your bowels when you fly, which means that there are quite a lot of farting going on in the flight deck. All right, it's something that is very, very hard to do something about. It's just like that. So don't worry, but you might have to look, if you do it a lot, you might have to look into your diet, check not using lactose. It's probably, that's probably my one and only medical suggestion I will do today. How much flying hours do you have from Saget Hackett? I am still summarizing last year's flying hours, to be perfectly honest. It's just a little bit more than 10,000, as I think, at the moment. But that doesn't count all my instructor time, and I have several thousand hours of simulator time as well. Kathan Dudhela, if I was to start a channel like you, how would I do it? Yeah, anyone can do that, obviously, because I did it. I've only been doing this for 2 years. What you have to understand is that you have to provide good content all the time. All right, you have to keep sending or making videos that give something. There has to be some kind of added value, right? So people who watches your videos, they have to do it because they want to see something, or they want to hear or learn something. It might be anything. You might be a really good plumber or electrician or whatever, and if you do that and you show people how to make, how to unplug a toilet or whatever it might be that you're really good at doing, then people will like it, okay? But it's going to take time. It's going to be slow. The first 100 subscribers is going to take a long time. The first 1,000 subscribers is also going to take a long time. The first 10,000 takes a very long time. And then it tends to start kind of moving a little bit. But it's not like, well, a lot of people think that you can do one viral video and that will just last you a lifetime. That's not the case. You've seen it, if I don't produce something for 2 weeks, let's say I go for vacation, for example, and I don't do anything for 2 weeks, my channel starts to decline. Okay, people stop watching it. My old videos starts to be watched. The Google, like the YouTube algorithm, actually favors when people send out loads and loads and loads and loads of information and loads of new videos, which is what I did. I did a video on that just last week. So you are going to, A, you need to have a good idea. 2, B, you're going to need to be able to present it in a good way, okay? And C, you're going to have to do it regularly. So upload every second day or every third day. Have 2 videos a week at least, something like that. And if you do it, you show enthusiasm and you give something to your viewers, it will come, but it will not be easy. People that nowadays, they want to be YouTubers when they grow up. It is not easy, I can tell you that. Cool. Matthew Brooks, is there a demand for modular pilots? Yes, there's a demand for all types of pilots. And like I said in the beginning of the live stream, it's probably more demand now than it's been for my entire career. For the 15 years that I've been working, I haven't seen the market as good as it is right now. So yes, there is. It's still the case that if you go through an integrated route in one of the major schools like CTC or Oxford or SEA or something like that, they might have better connections with airlines, so you might be getting an interview quicker. Okay, I'm not gonna lie and say that that's not the case. However, given the current financial climate, it is likely that you'll be able to go and get an interview anyway. All right, in one airline or another. So the money that you save might be worth it, even though it might take a little bit longer time. But yes, there is a big demand for pilots. And I know that I'm going to get criticism for saying this, because I do know that there's loads of you probably watching this who are sitting there who has been applying for jobs for ages and still haven't found anything. So there's never any guarantee, but at the moment it looks much better than it did a few years ago. That's the one thing that I can say. Okay, and I hope that makes sense. Charlie, how did you manage to finance the ATPL? Yeah, so like I've been explaining in my channel and also on these live streams a couple of times, I was very lucky. I managed to get into a government-sponsored program, which means that the state of Sweden actually paid for all my licenses, including the ATPL, frozen CPL instrument rating, and the MCC and the multi-engine. So all of my licenses were paid for by Sweden. However, I did have to finance my own type rating when I joined the airline that I'm working for, which is something that most airlines actually ask for now, unfortunately. But I was very lucky. So we weren't very rich. I'm not coming from a rich family. I'm coming from a family who's middle class, very, a normal middle class family. And so it would have been very hard to finance the kind of money that I would have needed unless I got into that. Luke Scott, how do you juggle family life and being a full-time pilot? Yeah, this is one of the good things with being a pilot, is that you actually have a little bit more time off than what normal people have. It might not be on weekends, it might not be on holidays, stuff like that, but you do have more time. Okay, so for me it works very well. I am very lucky to be based where I want to be based, which is close to the family of my wife, and I have only 35 minutes commute to work. So I go there, I do my 2 sectors or my 4 sectors, and then I come back home at night, and I get to see my family either in the morning or in the evening, and then I have my 3 days off, which is fine. And with my job as a training manager as well, I'm off on the weekends, which is fantastic. So for me, it's easy. For people who are working long haul, or in other companies, or in one of the commuter airlines in the States, it might not be as easy. Okay, so just because I can do it, it doesn't mean that everyone can. But this is something you need to look into before you get into this industry, because if there is any downside to this job, it is the potential hardship when it comes to family life. You know, it can be very glamorous, it can be very interesting, it's certainly very rewarding, but keeping your family happy is probably going to be the biggest challenge you have. So for the moment, I have managed to do it. It doesn't mean that it's going to look like that for my entire career. It might be harder for you, but it is doable. At least I'll go out and check with my wife and I ask her if she thinks so. Jacob Mana, how much does the type rating on the 737 cost? I paid around 30,000 euros, and I think that is pretty much what the going rate is still. More questions from the chap. Long haul or short haul? I like short to medium haul. Okay. The question, the answer to that is craft. But I choose to go for the family life bit. All right. Right, so it looks like the video is, or the internet is running out. There we go. Let's see, it should be coming back up again. Alright guys, I'm not sure if you can see me, but actually we're coming up to almost an hour of live stream now, so I am going to kind of round this up. So, let's see. The last couple of questions, guys. Where can you get your medical done? What I would like you to do is I'd like you to just Google AME, Aeromedical Examiner, or AMC, Aeromedical Center, and that is going to show you where the closest aeromedical center is, which is where you need to do your initial class 1 medical. And Aeronautical Medical Examiner is the one that is going to do the medical examinations once you've done your initial class 1. So check for an AMC or an AME, and that will tell you where to go. Alright guys, I'll just take another few questions, okay, so maybe 2-3 more minutes. So if you really have something important, then go into the super chat on YouTube now and I'll answer those last questions. Charlie, what's the best way to get money if you're not very lucky like me? The best way, I mean, when it comes to money, there's no ways around it. You are going to have to work, all right? If you can't get into a government-sponsored program or an airline-sponsored program, well, then you are going to have to work for that money, save up, pay your money that you've saved into flight training, and just build your way through it. Unfortunately, there's no shortcuts to that. Katan Dudela, what do you think about plane shares to build hours? Could be a good idea, you know, if there's enough of you and you build and you buy a good quality, well-maintained aircraft and you use that to kind of fly around Europe or do an adventure out of it, it's still going to cost you money, but you might be able to sell the aircraft afterwards and get back some of that money. So, you know, if you have the guts to do that, fair on you. Very good. I think it's probably a really, really fun idea, and it's definitely going to be an adventure for your life. So, good stuff. Do it. And send me some pictures. Right, guys, so to finish this off, if there's no more questions coming up on the super chat within the next couple of seconds, then I want to thank you all for this live stream. It's been really, really good. I like doing these, and actually I am working on maybe getting some way of doing these live streams for you guys, where you can schedule. Maybe I'll do a live stream maybe for only 10 or 15 people, and then schedule hours or whatever for it. I'm going to look at different ways of doing this, because I think these live streams are great. I know that you guys like these live streams as well. And if you have the Mentour Aviation app, I'll be able to send out a notification whenever I have time to do these live streams, which I'm hoping to do at least twice a week. Edward Cameron has the last question here. What do airport firefighters do day to day? They spend a lot of time in the gym, all right, and a lot of time practicing. So we did a lot of, we started off the day with maybe doing a couple of exercises, which might be turning out small fires, big fires, terrain fires, things like that. Maintaining the fire trucks and the bandwagons and keeping them up to speed, making sure that all of the hoses are in shape, and then going to the gym and chilling out and watching TV and stuff like that. So being an airport firefighter, normally it's combined with working on the ramp. I did it only as a firefighter for about a year as part of my military service, and then I worked as a ramp, throwing bags, and an airport firefighter. And that's more common, that you do some kind of combination, because only the firefighting job is not much to do, to be perfectly honest. Guys, that's it. Get the Mentour Aviation app. There's more stuff coming out. If you have the Mentour 360 app, I'm going to be putting up the Mentour 360 videos inside of Mentour Aviation app as well, together with some more informational material. But that means that if you have the Mentour 360 app and you see that one of those coming, you don't need to buy those videos. You can just use the Mentour 360 application as an instructional tool, and then just watch the free YouTube material that I'm putting out next to it. Okay. Apart from that, go into the Facebook page. Send me questions. Send me questions here on YouTube. And tell me if you want me to do more podcasts, or if you want me to do more live streams or anything like that. I love interacting with you guys. Thank you very much for the live stream, and have a absolutely fantastic week. See you next time.